Hey everyone, what's up open boaters? We hit episode 60. We're over the hill and we're into episode 60. I don't know what they say for your 60th birthday, but I just know 50 is over the hill. So we're over the hill and we're still doing great. So today we are taking your burning questions. I have the fireplace in the background here to fit the theme. No, it is not lit, but I'll add a little flame for the burning questions because it's 100 degrees outside and raining, so there's no way it would be on. But burning questions, we're answering them. So first off, I just want to say thank you to everyone who commented on my open boat burning questions. They were all respectable questions and they were great and very, 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 very good inquiries that I'm very stoked to answer. So without further ado, let's get into it. And of course, I'm gonna split this section up into multiple open boat episodes because they're like I said, they're good questions and I'm gonna elaborate on the answers. So instead of droning on and on and on, I'm gonna cut it into 3 parts. So if your question doesn't get answered in this episode, don't worry, next week it will. So let's get right into it. The first question, Frankie Z2369 asks, what is the name of your favorite boat to fish from? Now I wonder who asked this question. Reflecting upon Open Boats episode 1, 11, 18, 55, and many more to come, you'll know that answer. Surreals. Okay, next question from Roman. Roman wonders what determines the distance between the teaser and the jig, and the distance between the high and the low in a high-low rig. So the biggest thing with this, it depends on the species that you're targeting and land your boat. So for starters, the basic thing with the length in between is you don't want them to be too close for a chance, for example, with your bucktail teaser to get tangled. Same deal with the high-low. If you're sea bass fishing with the high-low, sometimes you have 1, 2, 3 droppers with the high-lows with the hook. Same high-low rig too. Sometimes I do 3, but the more hooks, you gotta calculate the distance and you gotta figure out that they're not gonna interfere. So you don't wanna get them tangled. For the high-low, you gotta keep everything spaced out so you don't have that interference. And the distance away from the sinker usually is like 10 to 12 inches. And your main mission when you're tying your own rigs is you don't wanna have that interference. The key word to this answer is interference. And if something doesn't look right, it probably isn't. Like for example, when I tie my bucktail teaser rigs for the boat, if something doesn't look right, I will literally redo it and start all over again. Same thing with all my other rigs because rig failure is a serious thing and we don't want that. No rig failure. If you watch my blackfish videos, you know how much I stress rig failure. You don't want that. So going back to the bucktail teaser rig, I'll post an image here of the bucktail teaser rig I use for pitching up current. And for starters, I always make sure I have 12 inches of leader from your barrel swivel before you start the actual teaser dropper loop. Because 1, I hate jewelry being too close to the bait because sometimes that swivel and even the braid can dissuade a fish from striking. So I leave plenty of leader before I start tying my rig. If there's a sand eel bite, you can do sand eel teaser and you can do an SP minnow. That's the perfect combo right there for that, like during the fall run, if and when we have sand eels. I wouldn't recommend doing it for peanut bunker, but that's a whole other story. So you want that teaser to be presented, and you want that bigger plug to be presented because it looks like a tiny bait fish being chased by a bigger bait fish, so that striper will hit that. You don't want that barrel swivel close because it kind of just interferes with it. So having it 12 inches up, you're good. So moving on to the next question is from Chef Outdoors 2116. Chef asks or inquires and states that this was an odd year for water temperatures in South Jersey. As a mostly land-based and inshore fisherman, I'm curious on your thoughts of the effects of water temperature on the fish movement throughout the year. For some species, I've noticed significant change and others not so much. So yeah, we've definitely all suffered a little bit this fluke season with the upswell and the colder temperatures. That's something that every angler has to adjust to, and they have to realize that when it comes to fishing, there's a lot of factors that affect the fish you're targeting. Like I always say, fishing, like back when I was in college, fishing for me is more than a hobby. It's like a study. It's like what I'd be going to school for, like marine biology, but you know what I mean. It's not just like bowling, like you hit pins, but with fishing, you have to study the species you're targeting, what food, like what their bait source is, what environments they succeed in, what their migratory patterns on. There's so many factors that build this fishery that are all so important to know. And going a little off the rails here, but one of the like most important things with anything that you want to do research on is read your books. I have so many books on just every single species that I've been interested in and different ways to catch fish that you just have to read and like do your research on and just learn, because books are the greatest resource you could have to learning about a specific species or a specific place you want to fish. There's so many different things that come out of books that people, you gotta make the time to read. I sound like such a dork here, but you gotta make the time to read because it is so important, and you learn so much and so much hidden history into a certain species or just a fishery themselves. So going back to chef, thank you for that question, but there's the big factor with fishing and the fish in general is that they need a lot to thrive in their environment: proper oxygen, food source, and comfort. Colder waters hold more oxygen, which the fish need to breathe. However, the colder water slows down a fish's metabolism and slows down the fish overall. They reduce their breathing rate, their movement, and hunger. Sometimes the colder water may alter the fish so much that they will hightail it out of that area and find warmer waters, which could completely eliminate a bite in certain waters. Cold water can make the fishing slower. Like I said, we've all experienced that this summer with the fluke bite. It's slowly picking up here in New Jersey, but it's not the best. But if you put your time in, you will get fish. Like, hey, tournament fishermen out there, this is a good tip. A lot of guys have just been straight dead sticking their bait and they're getting good fish, and they're sticking it out to one piece that they're constantly drifting over and working a bite. They're building a bite on that piece. So that's a little secret for you guys right there if you haven't been out and experiencing it for yourself. But like the fluke bite slowed down when you're ocean fluking. The fish are there, they're just not chewing so much because they're ambush predators, and due to colder water, they become more lethargic. So they're not, chasing your bait as much as they would be. So that's why the dead sticking and sticking to one spot's been working out a lot. Sometimes the colder water can even affect the spawn season of the species. So something you have to take into consideration is when you're done fishing for a season, you say, oh, the bite sucked, or the season was terrible. I barely had any keepers. I barely had any bites. Something to take in consideration is the weather. And every angler has to, if they consider the stock assessments, which I recommend every angler should, you should know a lot about the species you're targeting when assessing the stock status of their targeted species when they go fishing. It's just another huge factor that needs to be taken into consideration when the bite sucks, because the colder water can slow down everything about a fish. And it certainly has one way been a major part of affecting the fishing this season. But you gotta make the best of it. You gotta put your time in and just try, because if you're not fishing, you're gonna go senile. So I feel you there, but being stubborn and just perseverance and just, you're out there, you gotta put your time in and make it work. All right, moving on to the next question, probably the final one for this open boat episode, from Angelo Pengue 7117. If you know anything about the inshore tuna bite that is currently happening, that'd be very helpful. Well, Angelo, I got good news for you, because if you go on the Fisherman magazine website and go to our fishing reports and the offshore section, we have excellent intel from our awesome contributors all across the region: tackle shops, party boat fishermen, private charters, all the guys that have been out there every single day crushing that tuna bite you so very much so crave. They are giving us intel every single weekend on the reports. So if you tune into those fishing reports on our website, you will get that fresh intel. Now, stay tuned for next week's open boat in the video fishing forecast, where I continue to go through all your questions. I'll see you guys next week.